Thank you for joining us. This is Health Your Own Way podcast, and I am your host, Mo Atkins.
End of the episode. Today, we're going to be talking about balancing your hormones through menopause, perimenopause, you name it, and even beyond that through diet and lifestyle. My guest speaker is Dr. Leslie Kasanoff. I apologize. She spent her life in healthcare. She has over 25 years of experience as a holistic chiropractor. And I want to say thank you for having this conversation with me, because I find a lot of people don't have that conversation. And I find that we don't. So before we start, anything you want to add about yourself before we continue today?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. And the only other thing I do want to add is that I did work for about 10 years before that as a medical lab scientist. So this current iteration of what I'm doing gives me the opportunity to combine both that kind of science geeky part of me with that with the alternative health part of me, and really go deep down the tunnel to help women.
I like that. And you know what? I appreciate from what I'm hearing from you is that you found your passion, you found your geeky side to helping women. You seem like you're passionate about it.
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay, so I know that today we're going to be talking about balancing your hormones, and as a woman, I've recently heard of and perimenopause. Like, you educate me here. So what is the difference between perimenopause to menopause? Like, I don't remember nobody teaching me this.
Okay, what the technical definition and the definitions that people speak in everyday language are actually a little bit different.
Okay.
So technically, perimenopause is that entire period from when you first start having any kind of symptoms that something's starting to change here, all the way through till your very last cycle. And then menopause is actually your last cycle and the next year beyond. And then menopause is the rest of your life. So once you're a year beyond, you haven't had a period in a year, that's menopause. So that's the technical definition. But the way most people refer to it in society is that menopause is kind of that whole perimenopause thing, and maybe a little bit beyond it.
That makes sense, because I think that's what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
So you're basically telling me once I'm done my period, I'm in menopause for the rest of my life. Is that what you're saying?
Technically, yeah, but that's not the way the public refers to it. So don't worry about it.
And I literally shook. I was like, what? I thought it was only a short period of time, but it's nice to know. Yeah. I think a lot, even when you mention the difference, I find that it's kind of sad as women that we're not educated about this kind of stuff in our life. And I think, as we get older, we're in our 20s or 30s, 40s, 50s, our body starts changing. And then you're like, okay, where do I get that information? So, for you, are you able to tell us or share with us how women hormones are changing during perimenopause? Like, what should we be self-aware of before we hit menopause?
Well, I think the first thing to be self-aware of is that it's kind of like, let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
And say that the first thing to be aware of is that a lot of the changes that go on are compounded by things in our diet and in our environment. And so we can do a lot before we get there that'll help mitigate a lot of the problems that typically happen when we get there. And that's a lot of what I try to do, is educate women that there's a lot of influences between your gut microbiome and your diet and your environment and your exercise and all that. There's a lot of influences going on with your hormones, but you can control 98% of it.
Appreciate you saying that. And I guess, what's the first thing that that we can do now to make a difference, or even see a difference?
Well, here's where I'm going to start to get controversial.
Go ahead. It's nice to hear different point of views.
Yeah. So one of the first things that I highly recommend that women do is that they either completely give up dairy or seriously limit it. because dairy is just loaded with naturally occurring hormones, a ton of naturally occurring hormones on its own. Whether, like I said, naturally occurring, whether it's from an organic cow, an organic, goat, an organic sheep, doesn't matter. It is an animal. It's a female animal. You're drinking the growth fluid of that animal or consuming the growth fluid of that animal. So it's going to be loaded with hormones.
I've heard that, like, not heard about the specific what you said, but I've heard of people that give up dairy just to help with their hormones. And you're basically stating that, one of the first things you can do is you're suggesting that they can give up dairy because of the fact that you are taking some type of another species, in a sense, hormonal and substance in your body that can also maybe change your body in a certain way.
Exactly.
Is that fair to say?
Exactly. Yeah. Not only can it change it, it can change your body in certain ways. And when you think about it, that substance that you're taking in is designed for most commonly a baby calf, right?
So then why did they push it on us to drink it? Like, it's meant for calcium. I know we're deviating from this conversation, but I blame you, Dr. Leslie. Okay. I guess, I don't understand. What's the point of saying it's good for your bones and everything all those times?
Yeah. It's, it's a lot of propaganda.
Okay.
For one.
You can be frank. I'm not here to, I'm open to conversation. Yeah. I'm not here to judge. And again, anybody's listening and watching, it's not like we're pushing anything. We're just having a conversation, and everybody is entitled to their own opinion. Whatever you hear from this conversation, I'm saying to anybody who's listening or watching, it's up to you to choose what you want to take out of it, correct?
Exactly. And so here's the thing. Traditionally, our society has pushed dairy on people. If you look at other societies in the world, not, maybe more, maybe less, you look at a lot of the Asians and they don't drink dairy at all. And guess what? They have less osteoporosis than we do. Isn't that interesting?
I hear what you're saying. Okay, I hear what you're saying. I think, I find there's got to be a lot more research, and a lot of people have to do their research in respects to what they want to do. And then, when we mentioned diet, but we'll talk about lifestyle. So let's go with lifestyle in respects to how you can start changing or balancing your hormones in respects to when you're either in menopause or premenopause. How could someone change their lifestyle, and what would you recommend?
Well, I think one of the first things is regular exercise. We in our society, we've gotten away from movement in general.
With you.
Yeah.
But then I find a lot of women, as we get older, especially in our 40s and 50s, we don't move that much. And some people are afraid to move again because, again, you spent the past maybe 10, 15 years not doing that much activity. So your body is stiff. So nobody wants to feel pain. So then how do you convince someone that, okay, yes, it's going to be painful, but in the long run, you're saving yourself more pain?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is just educating them that when your muscles don't get used, they lose strength. And then you start relying on your joints because the fulcrums of the physiology and the physics, you're going to rely more on your joints, which is going to put more wear and tear on your joints. So if you're out of shape, your joints are going to wear out that much faster. You're going to have more pain in the long run.
Yeah, because as a chiropractor yourself, you've seen people that over the years you've seen their bone deteriorate, and I find that we're not educating people, especially women, or even anybody. We're not really educating them on the need to do that. A lot of people are just like, okay, go to the gym. You don't really need the gym. You just need to be moving, and you need to make the right choices, because it does affect your hormones. It does affect your lifestyle. It affects how you live. And the fact that you mentioned, people are afraid to do anything because your muscles will deteriorate. Then you mentioned earlier, then your bones become more strained. And then once your bones become more strained, then you get into surgery because your hips, they cracked. And you can't walk, and you're a 60-year-old woman or a man, and you now realize that you can't do anything because you you waited so long.
Right. Yeah. And I think the thing of it is to also remember that the body is amazingly resilient. And so even if you haven't exercised for 10 or 20 years, if you just start doing a little bit more every single day, you can get into some reasonable form of shape that you're going to be able to do the things that you want to do. And a lot of what I tell people is that I feel like my mission is to help people be able to do the things that they want to do until the day they die. So think about what you want to be doing, when as you age. Do you hope to be able to play with your grandchildren, for example? Or do you want to just have them playing while you're sitting there watching them? You want to be able to travel and see the world and maybe have some adventures and do some things that you've never done before? Or do you want to be too old and crotchety to be able to do that?
Like, I agree 100%. And what you say, I tell my clients, I tell other people, I'm like, I'm going to age myself. I'm hitting the 40s. I'm about to hit my 40s. And I look at there and I say to myself, you know what? In 10 years, what do you want to do? I've seen people, like, you see the home age homes, right? And then you see the older people that are just wheeled in front of a TV and they just watch there. Like,
Yeah,
it's not like I want to be flying a kite or be bungee jumping at the age of 80, but I would like to have that option,
exactly.
I would like to have the option to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's just what I was going to say is you said something about I'm hitting 40. I'm thinking about 10 years from now. I encourage you to think about 30 years from now.
I'm already trying to survive the 10 years. I'm trying to survive the 10 years. No, but you're right. Like, I see, even unfortunately, I see individuals younger than me that are even like their body not compositions, but their body movements are even older than 50 or 60-year-old people. And I'm surprised. And I find that, you're right, the diet and the lifestyle, some of them may not even be aware that they're in pre-menopause right now because of the way they choose to eat and what they choose to how they live their life.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, if anybody wanted to learn more about what you're teaching and what kind of services you're looking for, what is the best platform to reach you out
on? Probably the best place to reach me is either I have a public Facebook group that's Vibrant Health Over 40.
Oh, nice.
And that's probably one good place to reach me. Another good place to reach me would be my Instagram account, which is dr.lesliek.
Love that. So let's step back, because you said you have a Vibrant, and why did you create that Facebook? Like, I love the name, Vibrant Over 40. I love that.
Yeah, because that's, to me, that's what it's all about, is to continue to live vibrantly, to continue to have the energy to do the kind of things that you want to do. I'll be honest with you. I'm 65.
No.
Okay.
No, I thought maybe like mid-50s or late.
I'm 65. And now you know that I recently did this. I broke my hand.
Yes.
And this fracture forced me to postpone a European bicycle trip.
Oh.
Now, mind you, I said postpone, not cancel.
Fair enough. I hear you, Leslie. I hear you.
And I'm still doing it.
I love that.
And so I think that the thing, the big message that I want to send to people is that if you put the pieces in place in your 30s, in your 40s, into your 50s, you can keep doing those things that you love. But if you sit on your behind for 30 years, you're going to be limited as to what you continue to do, what you can continue to do. Now, the body is amazingly resilient, but if I took 10 years off from cycling somewhere in there, I could not have continued to do what I'm doing at the level I'm doing it. Now, I did, when I was doing the whole career and kid thing, obviously I didn't exercise the way I've exercised in more recent years. But, so you do have to balance it all.
And let me add, so before I let you go, I find that especially ones in their late 40s, like okay, for early 40s, mid 40s, they're like, okay, my body's different. They want to do something. It's like when they hit their 50s, some of them are just, it's like they resign to think that that's all they can do. There's no need, they can't do anymore. And I think it's a lot of fear of the unknown, in a sense that, okay, can I do it, or fear of failure? I'm not even sure which one. But what is your, like, what do you think based on your experience?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both: fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of, just they haven't done it for a long time. But I think the other thing that I really want to stress to women, especially in that whole 45 to 55 time frame, especially, is that there are things you can do naturally to balance your hormones, to get your energy level back, to get your brain thinking again, because one of the hallmarks of perimenopause is, the old thing of forgetting why you walked into a room, forgetting people's names, all that stuff. And so much of it is hormonally related, and it's related to your gut microbiome as well as the hormonal shifts with the whole perimenopause thing. And the vast majority of it can be addressed by getting more fruits and veggies on your plate, taking some of the meat off of your plate, getting rid of the processed foods, all the things that we know we should be doing. This is just one more reason, because it will help balance all that stuff.
I like what you're saying, because I believe what you're saying. When someone resonates what you're saying, because I think it's 100%. A lot of people need that. With that said, I want to say thank you for having this conversation with me, because you resemble that, it's not too late. It's, you can still do it, and you can still live the life that you deserve and want to deserve. So I want to say thank you for being part of this conversation. And,
Thank you.
We're glad to have you join us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share with anyone that needs to be empowered and inspired, and don't forget to join us next week for the next episode of Health Your Way Podcast. Have a good day, you guys.